There we are. All right. So, hello, everyone, and thank you all so much for coming today. I saw a lot of familiar names on the sign up list and popping in through the waiting room. But for those of you who don't already know me, my name is Al Hayden. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the Library Advisory Specialist here with the Mass Board of Library Commissioners. My primary job goals are working to help library administration, trustees, foundations, friends group get the information and support that they need to help them support and advocate for their libraries. There was so much valuable possibilities with this program, though, that I absolutely wanted to open it up to as many people as possible. So I know we have people outside of those groups, but I'm very glad that everybody could be here to join us. So I'm thrilled today to welcome Nicole as Burnett McKenzie from the U.S. Census Bureau. I saw her presentation at NELA and I was blown away at how much useful information you can mine through the Census Data tool. So I wanted to bring her to all of you and have her show you all of the cool stuff that I saw her demonstrate. A couple of brief housekeeping items and then I'll let her dive right in. The presentation is being recorded. It will be sent out to all of the registrants, including the people on the wait list. If you haven't already, please check to ensure that your audio is muted. The little microphone icon on the bottom of your screen should have a little red diagonal line through it. Video, 100% optional and subject to your personal preference. And I think you are welcome to drop your questions into the chat. I'll be monitoring the chat throughout. Nicole, do you prefer me to interrupt with questions, or would you rather questions be saved until the end?
If there's something I'm going over, you feel free to stop me. I don't mind. If it starts getting, if there are a lot of questions, we can try to handle them at the end. And if there are questions that I don't get to, I certainly will follow up with an email to anyone that has a question. I can't answer or I don't get to.
All right. Sounds fantastic. Well, in that case, I will turn the reins over to you and get everybody excited about data.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Al and Rob, for having me. I am going to pull up the PowerPoint here. I appreciate all of you for sharing your afternoon with me, and I will get started. Just to give you a little background about what I do, I started in 2019 as a partnership specialist in New Hampshire. I'm up in New Hampshire, and I worked the 2020 census. And I just have to say, before we even get started, how much the libraries helped us conduct a decennial census in the middle of a pandemic. It was amazing. And you supported us in so many ways throughout the country. So this is a nice way that during all that data collection, it's a nice way to be able to give back to you and to your communities to share this great data that can be so helpful to you all. So I cover pretty much the New England states with the exception of Connecticut, who my counterpart in New Jersey covers. So this is what I do. I'm a data dissemination specialist now. My job is to provide workshops to show people how to access our data, how to use our tools, and then answer any questions or help people find data if they're doing research. That's what I'm here for. So I often say that I feel like the Census Bureau sometimes is similar to libraries, and people will think of libraries as only books, where libraries are so much more than books. Many people think of the Census Bureau as that decennial census, but we're so much more than that as well. So maybe you can help us spread the word and you can use some of our services. Before starting at the Census Bureau, I started a grant management and acquisition company. I wrote for a lot of grants, a lot of federal and state grants. And I can tell you that if I had known if I had known about this data.census.gov tool that I'm going to show you, if I had known about this tool back when I was writing grants, it would have made my job a lot easier, and I probably would have won some of the grants that I didn't win. So it's a fantastic tool. The job that I'm doing in data dissemination, it's available to any of you for your personal libraries. If you have questions, if you have patrons that are coming in and they're struggling with finding data, they can reach out to me via phone or through my email. I will provide a copy of this presentation to Al so she can share it with you. It has a lot of links in it and a lot of really good resources. But please feel free to reach out to me anytime. I also do training such as this. If your library wants to offer it to some of the customers, I'm happy to do that as well. So before I kind of give you the how we're going to get through this afternoon, I just wanted to get you thinking about some of the ways that the Census Bureau data can help libraries. So it's a way to really understand your community demographics, who lives in your community. It often helps with library programming development and decision making. If you know what your community is made up of as far as the population, it gives you a better understanding of how many children's programs you may want to offer. Do you have more individuals at retirement age? Should you offer more programs toward that group? It also helps with advocacy and funding. So if you're looking for funds, it really helps give you that data to make an argument or make a case or write your grant and show what your service delivery area is comprised of and what some of the needs are. Helps you track some social issues that may be in your service delivery area. Do you have people that maybe don't have access to health insurance? Do you have people that may not have, we have digital literacy here? Do you have anyone, what's the broadband access and use in your area? Do you need to do anything to help patrons with that? We have economic and employment information that may also drive some of your programming decisions. And then if you're looking to maybe expand your library or build a second library, it will help you look at the geographical locations, which may be more beneficial. An overview of today's session. I'm going to give you a presentation. This is a Census 101. So I'm going to try to give you a little bit of background of the Census Bureau and talk about a few of our popular surveys without overwhelming you with data because we have a lot of it. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the census geographies and how you access data based on different types of geographies. I'll show you what we have for tools to access that data, how you can get it from our website. And then I'll actually do a live demo where I'm going to give you a little website tour, walk you around census.gov, and then I'm going to bring you into data.census.gov, which is I would say it's our golden tool. It's one of our popular applications. One of the things that I had mentioned in this job that I have, people will be looking for a piece of information or data, or they'll try to analyze a certain geography. Those questions that I get in, I would say about 85 to 90% of the time, I can go into this one tool, data.census.gov, and I can find the data they're looking for. So it's really, if you're going to learn anything about our website and the tools, we have 58 data tools. Last time I counted. This one, data.census.gov, is the one that you really want to become familiar with. So first, a little bit about the census and some of our popular surveys. You'll notice I had flowers because I just got rid of the snowmen. I did have snowmen backgrounds, but now I'm putting flowers because spring is on its way. So the U.S. Census Bureau, we are the federal government's largest statistical agency. We conduct more than 130 different censuses and surveys all the time. We're out there conducting these surveys. Many times I will get approached and people will say, the 2020 census is over. We're not having another one until 2030. How come you're still there? What are you doing? Well, we have plenty more surveys and censuses that we're collecting data for. We provide that accurate, reliable, timely data for businesses, for communities, for government. And I think the number, this $2.8 trillion dollar number, came from actually 2001. We had, after the pandemic, there was more federal funding, but that $2.8 trillion in federal funding was distributed to states and communities based on, in whole or in part, on Census Bureau data. So it's really important. And I know you're all helping with the decennial of, why you should answer your 2020 census or your upcoming 2030 census. It really helps distribute the funds to each area and make sure that your community gets funds that are needed. I have this, let me just take that out so you can see it. I have this in here. Sometimes on our website, when I do the website tour, you're going to find that the website, you can get lost in it sometime. I'm not going to lie, but I wanted to put this slide in here with a link for you all. So when you have this presentation, it brings you right to our history page. And there's a lot of really good links and information on this history page. Especially for librarians, if you're helping people find information, if they have questions, it's kind of a nice little, it's a hidden, I don't want to say it's hidden, but if you don't know the path to find it, it's not as easy to find. So there's the path right there. And I'm going to show you when I do the tour as well, but I mainly put this in here so you would have it. So our most popular or most well-known census that we conduct is that decennial census. It is mandated by the Constitution that we conduct this. It helps apportion the number of seats in the House of Representatives. We've been doing it since 1790, when actually George Washington was our president. You can see the different ways the census takers were out there collecting that data, way back on horseback. They just carried this big form and they wrote it in. They visited all the households. Then, we have this 80s van, which was, going around helping inspire people to fill out their 1980 census. And then this last census we had in 2020, we had people that you could actually fill out your census form on your laptop or on your phone, which was the first year that you could actually fill out your decennial on the phone, which was very helpful since we were in a pandemic. So we conduct this every 10 years, the years ending in 0. And we conduct it it's based on where people live on April 1st of that year ending in 0. Down here, you really can't see because it's showing that I am talking. Let me see if I can move this over here. Okay. So at the bottom, I have what I've listed here as popular decennial data tables. When we go in and we start looking at the data that we have that you can access, there are going to be thousands of data tables where you can pull information from. I've kind of listed a few of the more popular ones. So when you go into the tool, you can simply type in P1 or P10. It's going to bring you to some of that housing or the population tables from the 2020 census. Now we're in 2025 now, so we're halfway. We're kind of in that time frame right between decennials. So we do have population estimates programs that kind of adjust the population as we are in between the decennials based on births, deaths, migration, in and out migration. But these are some of the popular tables where you can pull that data from. The American Community Survey, this is the survey. It's our largest survey, and it used to be the old long form of the decennial. So if any of you ever received back before the 2010 census, there was a long form and a short form. The long form had 72 questions on it, but we only did it every 10 years back in 2000. But there were communities, governments, businesses, people that wanted that type of data more often than every 10 years. So in 2005, we took that long form and we It converted into the American Community Survey, which is an annual sample size of about 3.5 million addresses. And we are out there all the time, just sampling addresses, getting this great information that provides data on social, demographic, housing, and economic characteristics for you all. So when you're, planning some of those programs, most likely you're going to be accessing American Community Survey data to really tell you a lot about what your community, what it's comprised of, and what the needs are. You can get this information from the national level, all the way down to a block group level, and I'll explain that a little bit in the geography section. The data is released in a 1 year and a 5 year data format. A thing to know here is most of the communities in New England, we have a lot of small communities. To access the 1 year American Community Survey data, it is only for populations of 65,000 or higher. So that would be your cities, some of your counties, not all of your counties, but a lot of the small towns and some of your smaller counties, you're not able to get at that ACS 1 year data. So you would be looking at the 5 year data. The good and bad about that, the 5 year data, you have more survey samples. So you have 5 times 3.5 million addresses. So you have more volume of samples. But the data does go back further. So right now, the 2023 is out, which covers 2023 back to 2019. In most of the data that you're looking for, that isn't bad. That's good. I will tell you the one exception that that you'll know when I tell you, it's the housing prices. So housing prices now, when we're looking at the 5 year ACS data, you'll know that it's a little off because our housing prices have risen so much in New England. So that's one area. It's something to be aware of when you're collecting or you're gathering that data from our tools. This is a sample. It just shows you the type of data that you can collect from the American Community Survey that you have access to. It's in 4 pillars. So down below here, I have another table, DPO2, table DPO4. These are the data profile tables. And if you were looking for information on veterans, you could go right to the DPO2 table and there it would be. So this DPO2 is all your social characteristics. So any of this type of information you could find in the data profile O2 table. We also have economic characteristic type of information you can get out of the DPO3 table. So if you want to know, how many people commute to work from your neighborhood, we have work from home. That's something that you can find in this table. It talks a little bit about employment status, occupation, income. So any of that type of economic data that you're looking for your geography that your community, that would be in this table. We have the housing characteristics as well. And then we have just the straight demographic characteristics. I placed in here these red in the red font. That shows you that the decennial census also gathers this information in red. But remember, the decennial is every 10 years and it's a full count. It's a count of every household, whereas the American Community Survey is a sampling. So what that means is the American Community Survey content, there will be a margin of error because it's a sample. We do let you know what that is. So just something to be aware of. We also have economic surveys, which really provide a lot of helpful information to the government, to businesses. Therein, we do monthly and quarterly small samples, which provide really more of the timely data, but it's a very small sample. We have annual surveys that show more of a trend. So if something's trending, it'll be picked up more in the annual surveys. And then we do have a comprehensive economic census that we do for all businesses, and it provides that data that's conducted every 5 years in the years ending in 2 and 7. One thing that many people they're not aware of is that In addition to having field staff, we have field staff in every state out there collecting information from surveys for us. We're also collecting information for other federal government agencies. So this slide just shows a sampling of that. One of the ones you may be familiar with is the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. They release the unemployment rate every month. So they release that data, but that is something that we're sharing. So now let's look at the census geographies. One of the things just on the other, if you're ever writing grants for another federal agency, it's good to know, like if you cite our data, they also use our data. So it adds that reliability into the data for your grant applications. So census geographies, trying to get this out of here. It's kind of squeezing down on my screen here. But anyway, so when you pull data from our tools, you can pull it from various geographical levels. So you might be looking for, um, you know, poverty rates in your county. So you could pull that. You may say, you know what, I'm more interested in the town that I live in. You could pull that. You could also dissect a town and say, I want to know which areas of the town more retired individuals live. Maybe you're going to have I don't know, bus transportation to bring people to the library. I don't know, but you want to look at what parts of your community have different characteristics and concentrations of different characteristics. You can do that. This middle, we call it the geography spine. It kind of shows you the main geographies from a national level down to a block level. Um, Block level data, it's important to know that is only from the census, the decennial census. You can't get to that small level with American Community Survey information, but you can get down to the block group with American Community Survey data. I recommend personally, if you're going to take a city or town or a county and you're going to break it down to smaller geographical levels below like the town level, I recommend really going to the census tract level. And the reason for that is your margin of error is going to be lower because the census tract is kind of a it's a population of roughly 4,000 to 8,000. So there's enough of a sample size there. So your margin of error is more reasonable. So that's just advice. You can get lower in your geography, but you'll see if you go to the block group, your margin of error will go up. If you're looking, you see these little offshoots. These mean that the geographical areas that you can pull data from, say for a school district, it falls within the state, not within the county. So if when you're looking for data, you would start with the smallest level of geography. So if you're looking for school, it's then going to ask you for state. If you're looking for cities and town data, which probably most of you will be interested in city and town level data, you would look in New England only. We have geography that's a little bit different from other areas of the nation. You would look at the county subdivision level. That is how you best find New England cities and towns. We also have places over here, but in New England, this is another recommendation. You know, if you're looking for Barnstable in Barnstable County, start with the lowest geography of Barnstable, and then it would ask you what county. It would be Barnstable County, actually, and then state Massachusetts. So you kind of build it that way. Here's a visual, just shows you some of the different ways. I had put in to our data.census.gov tool. It's actually mapping different characteristics, and I didn't put on here what the characteristic was, but you know, maybe it's age, maybe it's housing, it could have been income, but it'll map the data for you. So here you have the whole state of Massachusetts. It shows you the different counties. So, you know, you could look at and analyze and compare county data. I then took out the Suffolk County. So that is over here. And we kind of broke Suffolk County down into cities and towns or county subdivisions. And we looked at those. So you have Boston makes up most of Suffolk County. So you have, I think it says Chelsea and Revere. So it just gives you an idea of that. Then, if you wanted to take Boston and break it out into census tracts, you can see that you can do that as well. So you can start to look at the different areas, the places in Boston where there are concentrations of whatever data you're looking for. I worked with the Boston Library. They have several libraries in the city of Boston, and we actually did this exercise and looked at the census tracts that each library served, and we could really do a good custom analysis on their service delivery area and who lived there and what some of the needs were. So that is something that can be done. This is all in our data.census.gov tool. This level of getting down to these smaller geographies and customizing maps, that will be in another workshop that we're going to do, where we're going to do a little bit deeper dive into that tool. So we have all this data. You can customize your area, see what is in your area, what it looks like, and it's real important as it helps you understand how your delivery area is unique. These are just some of the types of data that you can get. You can analyze how many veterans live in your service delivery area, children living in poverty, grandparents raising kids. I can tell you that I get questions sometime, and there have been questions where I think to myself, I don't think we have that. Well, guess what? I find that we do have that. So always ask, because you never know until you ask, and we do collect a lot of data. So we have all this data, and now the fun part, how do you access it? There's pretty much 4 different ways to access our data. The first, it starts with probably the easiest and goes up to the most difficult if you're going left to right here. The first, we have visualizations and interactive maps that are on our website. These are really easy to use. You can quickly find statistics for your state or your county, less down to the city town level. Most of them, well, there are some that go to the city town level, but most of them go to the county level. You can't customize them. It is what it is, but it gives you a great visual to just look at and analyze your state or your county. We then have the interactive data retrieval tools. This is where I spend most of my time. This is where when I'm doing demonstrations of tools, this is the kind of the sweet spot. This is where I am. The reason being is that you can fully customize the tools that we have, such as data.census.gov. Like I said, you can define your geography, you can tell it what type of characteristic topic you want to search. You can define which survey you want. So there's so many ways for you to customize how you pull your data. And it has the great mapping features. And a lot of the data tools, they're fed by different surveys. So you're not just getting the results of one survey, you're getting other input that is going into that data tool. We also have the application programming interface, also known as API. API is pretty much used by developers, software engineers. I get few questions on API, but once in a while I'll get, I don't know, a community or an organization that has their own software product, and they're pulling a piece of data or several pieces of data down to put into their custom application for a certain purpose. So this is a little more higher level, but it's sometimes you can't find the exact combination of characteristics or data that you're looking for in our established tables. So you might have to go to this API to pull it directly. But most of the times you can find what you're looking for in these interactive tools. We then have the file transfer protocol, which is FTP, our other acronym. And this is really the deep analysis. This information is transferred directly. And the example I can give you of this, when we do the 2020 or the 2030, we do that decennial, and all the household data comes, we get that in. It can be downloaded to the towns and the states, and it helps them with the redistricting, so they can get the actual numbers of population that live, down to the for the decennial, down to the block level, so they'll be able to redistrict and realign their maps, so and get a full count of their cities and their towns. This page just shows you the interactive infographics and visualizations. Seeing we just passed St. Patrick's Day, and I am talking to people in Massachusetts, which is a very high area for Irish descent. I thought I would use this one, but this is a sample of the interactive map. So, we put out there all the time. If a survey brings us data and it is something that is of interest, if it's the timing is such as, St. Patrick's Day, we will have internal folks that put these maps together, where the public can pull them up and research different things. Some of our popular data tools, this is that second block that I was showing you, is data.census.gov. I mentioned I'm going to bring you into that and show you that tool. That's a really popular, and I would say it's our premier application. That's the landing page of it. We also have narrative profiles. These are really fun. If you can pull up based on an address, you can pull up a lot of data. Say you want to find quickly, you're looking where you live or where your library is located. You want to quickly pull up narrative on, who lives there, what's the economy look like, any of that type of data that I was showing you could access. You can pull up from the narrative profiles. Census Business Builder. This is a great tool if businesses, we have a lot of small businesses in New England. If businesses are looking to expand or locate, the Census Business Builder lets them take different geographical areas and do an analysis on it or compare. So it actually lets them look at, say they're trying to decide, maybe they want to open a coffee shop, or maybe you want to open a library and you're looking at two different library locations. You could use this, doesn't have to be, it could be a library business of a library. Say you're looking at two different locations. It'll tell you, what your customers might look in that area. It will let you know what your competitors might look like. It will let you know if you're going to hire workforce, what the wages are in that area, that you would likely have to pay to hire employees to staff your business. So that is a great tool. It also produces a report, which I've worked with some small businesses where they've taken this report and they've added it onto their business plan, and they brought it to the bank, and the bank was very impressed. They felt that they really did their research, and it just added a little more validity or explanation as to why they wanted to open their business in a certain location. So this is something I know for libraries. I want to say it was a couple of years ago, I actually did a census business builder for patrons of a library. So a library had offered that and publicized it to their community. If you want to start a business, the library is hosting the Census Bureau to put on a census business builder workshop. So that's just something that we can do also to provide a service for you and for your patrons. We also have On the Map. This is a pretty cool tool. It shows you, it's a way, a lot of emergency management folks will use this. It will identify natural disasters. If we're having tropical storms, wildfires, floods, it identifies pretty much in real time. It provides where they are, and it will combine that with down to like census tract level of who might be in that area. So for instance, some of the wildfires out in the West, they could use this tool and they could look at, how many people over 65 are in that community. It just gives them an idea of, how they're going to help some of the people who are facing these natural disasters. We also have an on the map that is for economic reasons, and it shows where people live versus where they work. And that's a great tool as well if you're looking at commuting patterns for your library's area. How many people actually live in the community and stay there, or how many people go outside the community to work, or how many people come into your community from outside that may access library services during the day. We have My Survey Explorer. I mentioned we have 130 surveys, and this is one where you can say you want to find out how many surveys or what surveys we have on a topic such as children or housing. You can use this tool, and it will give you a list of which surveys contain data on that specific topic that you're looking for. And then we have quick facts. That this is a great tool to quickly compare up to 6 different communities. So if you want to look at your town and maybe the 5 towns around you, see how they differ, it's a really fast way to do that. The only downside of that tool is it only includes populations of 5,000 or more. So if your town or city doesn't have a 5,000 threshold, you're not going to find data in that tool for it. But these are just here. These are 6 tools. As I said, we have 58 or 59 of them, but these are more of the popular ones. We're going to have a deep dive seminar as part of this series, but we're also going to do a data on a deadline training as well. And I'm going to go in and it's going to be a blitz to demonstrate as many tools as I can within the hour. So that will be a fun one too. So we're almost to the demonstration part, which I always consider the most fun part of the presentation. This is the cover of data.census.gov. This is the landing page. It's right here. We're going to go in there. I'm going to show you kind of where that data comes from. So this platform, I mentioned a little bit about it. There, you can find thousands of data tables in this tool. You can directly download them into Excel. You can create a visualized map out of the data, which I showed you in one of the slides. It helps you produce data analysis at different levels within your community. You can create reports. So it's a really great tool in that sense. The data that is in data.census.gov comes from these surveys as well as the public sector. So we have information that is going into this tool from several different surveys. Couple of other things I wanted to mention that could be helpful for library staff. We have an age search service, so if it's just something good to be aware of. We have an ability, we can provide census records that can show proof of age or citizenship for a person. I know if someone lost their birth certificate and they couldn't find it and they want to get a passport, they could actually write to us for this using this BC 600 form, and it will request their personal census record. And the Department of State will actually, they accept that as in lieu of a birth certificate for passport application. So it's just something good to be aware of. It is a service that we have, and the link is right there. I'll show you on our site as well. And then the other thing that I think of, you may have people in the library who say, is this legit? I got a mailing from the Census Bureau. And this is more so during a decennial, but somebody could get an American Community Survey mailing and they might be confused. We have a spot on our website that lets people know if that mailing is legitimate, what it looks like. It tells them how to identify a field representative from the Census Bureau. It also lets them put a name in. So if they have someone knocking at their door, they can put the name in. It'll let them know if that person really works at the Census Bureau, and how to identify phone call. It gives you kind of the numbers where someone would be calling from. This is really important as we all get those calls, and it's just a good way to make sure that it's not a scam. So now I am going to jump into the live demo. When I transfer over, Al, are there any questions that I could answer as I go to the website? I'm not hearing any. I'm at the website. Hopefully you can all see the changeover. Okay, so our website is www.census.gov. So here we are on our landing page. First, I'm going to show you, I want to show you, I gave you the link in the presentation that I'll provide to you, but I wanted to show you that history section, which has a lot of great information. It's over here in About Us. So, you know, there's a lot going on here. But if you go to About Us and you go down to History and you click that, it brings you to our history page. And there is a wealth of information on this page that could be very helpful to you all. It provides, it gives you decennial census official publications back to 1790. So you can look at questions that were asked. And if you have a curious mind and you want to know what we asked for questions in 1790, or you can go back and look at find these documents, which is pretty. It's, if you have time, it's worth a look. Um, you also can get information on population back to those dates too. A lot of times I'll get a inquiry from a town who wants to know, what their population was in 1910, and we can actually find that. So sometimes it takes a little bit of searching, but we do have that type of information. There's genealogy research with census records that you can access here. We have information on the 72-year rule. So the 72-year rule is we have data privacy. So whenever you fill out a survey for the Census Bureau, we're very careful with that data. We don't share anyone's personal identifiable information. It's all kept and we do not share it. We only share it statistical format. But every 72 years, we will share the census form that was taken. So just recently, the 1950 census was released because it fell within that 72 rule year. So you can actually pull up the 1950 census now, and you could find your ancestors. You could look, and it would show you, who was in the household, the ages, the occupations, and a lot of people use that for genealogy research and ancestry information. You can also learn more about our privacy and confidentiality. And then if you just scroll down, every month we actually release a history story. And there's more stories. At the bottom here, it shows you the availability of census records. So we have the library, we have the National Archives, where you can get that 1950 data that was just released. They actually house our information there. You can get the BC 600 form if somebody's interested in that. But I want to go to the top here. I'm going to scroll back up and I'm going to show you this timeline. It's hard to see until you blow it up. But since I'm talking with libraries, I think you all like data. I do. And I find it fascinating. You can go back to 1790. It shows you every single decade here. And it just gives you a little bit of information about the United States, the population back in 1790. And you can just keep scrolling every single decade all the way. And I wanted to see, and it did. It went right up to our last director here, Robert Santos, who just resigned, but he is the last one. So whoever comes in next, they will be on here, and it provides you that population. So in 2020, we had this 331 million number for our population. So we've grown quite a bit since our first one. So anyway, I wanted to show you that. Let me go back to the history page. Okay, I'm going to go back to the landing page. One thing I'll tell you, when you're on our website and you start going down, there's so much information and so many paths you can take. I hate to say that you can find yourself in a rabbit hole, but you can. I always like to let people know that if you've clicked and clicked and clicked and you kind of don't know where you are, you can't get back to where you were. You can always click on our logo, and it brings you back to our landing page. It's kind of like the home button, so it brings you right back to that landing page. I didn't know that for a long time, and I used to get lost on our site. So once I found it out, I said I was going to share it with in every presentation I did. So hopefully you find it helpful. So here we are back at the landing page, and you can see you can hover over this ribbon at the top here, and you can pull up topics. So you can find information on by topic. So if you just wanted to look at information on health, on income and poverty, you could click any of these and you would find a lot of information on those. You can look at pull information by data and maps. So in this section, we have our Census Academy. That's where we have a lot of webinars, training videos. If you want to learn more about census data or many of the tools that we have recorded webinars or courses that you can look at. Um, Data tools and applications. This is where, when I had mentioned we have 58 different data tools, if you click on that, it lists them all here. So sometimes it's worth just taking a look at some of the tools that we have, and all these are click into a tool. It's that second category, those data tools that I was mentioning in the presentation. So like the Access Broadband tool, that's a relatively new tool, and it will show you your community. It gives you census tract information and county information on broadband access, and then it combines that with other demographic and population type information within that area. So you can compare broadband access to income and poverty or age or any of that income information. And you can just look, there's the Business Dynamics Explorer, Census Business Builders right here. So all of the tools are here. And there's the Survey Explorer I mentioned, but I'm going to go back to the top because I could do this tour for hours, but we don't have hours. So let me click that, go back to our main page, click the logo, and just show you we're still in data and maps. I went into the data and tools, and then you can also see data sets. This is the developers. That's where if you were looking for API, you would go there. Interactive maps. Here are your visualizations. So this is kind of when you're trying to pull data, this is where you'd find it. You'll notice under this button here, over to the left, it says Explore Data on data.census.gov. That tool is so good, and it's our premier. We have it kind of segregated out here by itself. You also can get to data.census.gov by just typing in your URL, data.census.gov, and it takes you right to the landing page of that tool. So I just wanted to point that out before we go there. That's an easy way to access it. You can also pull information by surveys if you want to learn more about a specific survey that we conduct. Remember, I mentioned there were 130 some odd surveys. This isn't all of them, but if you want a list of all of them, it's right here. So that has all the surveys and programs that we offer. And then we have the resource library here. And this is where we have some of our stories, our blogs, videos, photos. It just the America Counts stories. They're really interesting. Sometime they'll provide a story relative to a current event based on data. So there's a lot of good information there. But I am going to go scroll back to our data. Oh, wait a minute. Before I do that, let me just scroll down our main page. This is where need help with a survey. So it's on our main page. It's right here. Verify the letter, verify the person, and how we keep your information confidential. So it's right on the home page if you have anyone looking. Also on the home page is that quick facts, which I mentioned is a quick way to find something if your population is 5,000 or more. And then we also have the data.census.gov. It's a link here as well. So we have several links to this great tool spread throughout our website. We have a population clock. We do the U.S. economic indicators. Then we have stories below. But let's go into data.census.gov. I'm going to go in this way. So here is data.census.gov. If you are looking for a quick and easy way to pull up a profile on your community that your library serves, the easiest way to do it is just go into data.census.gov and use this general search. When we do a deep dive into this tool, we're going to be going into the advanced search. That's another workshop where we're going to create those maps and do some custom pulling of tables. But for this 101 workshop, I want to show you it's a great way to get a lot of information easily. So I don't know if Al, are you on? Do you have a city or a town that you'd like me to plug in here from Massachusetts? You could come off mic. I can take any place.
So before we do that, I don't know, did you notice, somebody mentioned in the chat on finding the data on remote workers?
Yep, that is in here. It's under our commuting table, and it's worked from home. So we will do a deep dive analysis on that in that other workshop, but we may be able to find something here through this, and I'll look at it. But was that the only question?
That's the only question that's come through in the chat so far, though if anybody wants to pop off mic or put into the chat a city they have a burning desire to find some information on, you're more than welcome.
No?
All right. Now, well, I'm based out of Danvers, so why don't we do Danvers?
Okay. So basically, you take your town or your city. So I'm going to be typing in Danvers. So it gives me all of these different places. You notice there's two for Massachusetts. Actually, this was a great one, Al, because sometimes people will say, okay, what's a CDP versus a town? So for the Census Bureau geography, a CDP is a census designated place. And then Danvers town is probably how you look at Danvers, the whole place. I'm guessing, I'm not real familiar with Danvers, but there may be a downtown area or a place that the census looks at. It's kind of a subset of Danvers. Um, I don't, I would have to look detailed at the map, but when you get these two choices, I would go with Danvers town because it would be the whole town versus a smaller subset.
Oh, okay. We do have Danvers Port, which
Okay, that
which is
could
like
be
officially under the town,
okay.
but it is like a small subset.
Okay. And yeah, we have a lot of those in New England. There's the census designated places, which sometimes there's like a village within a town. It's still the town and the outskirts, but then in the census, what they do is a lot of times a town will want data for that subset. So if it's a certain area, they'll end up having a census designated place. There might be more population in that little area of town. So but this is for Danvers town for the whole. So all I had to do was go to data.census.gov, type in Danvers, and this page popped up. So it's basically telling me that from the 2020 census, the population was 28,000. So you can scroll down and you can see. Remember, I told you there were thousands and thousands of tables. So 2,906 data sets that would have information for Danvers. You could spend a month maybe opening every single table if you wanted to. When we go to the deep dive, I'll show you how to narrow that down. But for this demonstration, the best thing that I would say, if you want to know quickly as much as you can on Danvers. You go over to the right here, you'll see the map. It shows you where Danvers is. And there's a little blue link here. It says View Profile. And you click on that View Profile for Danvers. And it quickly brings you a lot of information on Danvers. So the top ribbon here, these are kind of the characteristics people are looking for the most often. So they may want to know what the education level is of the people who live in Danvers, and it'll say his bachelor's degree or higher. The neat thing about this, remember it showed over 2,000 data tables. If you just pull up this profile and you say, I'm really just um, I'm interested in employment information. It gives you a link right here to the data profile where that employment information is. So you can click right into that data table of where this 65.1% came from. So it's a quick, easy way to get at a table. And remember, this is all just for Danvers. So as you scroll down, you'll see this top ribbon, populations and people, income and poverty, education. So it goes across. As I scroll down, we're going to cross each of these areas. So we're starting out with populations and people. It tells you the median age of people in Danvers, shows you a little bit older than Essex County as a whole. So it kind of compares right, in this pull up, how it compares to the county level. It gives you a population pyramid, which is always interesting. It shows you the males, the ratio of the males versus the females, and it shows you the every 5 years, the age group. So you have this 55 to 59-year-old age group, but I mean, it's a great visual. And as you go down further, language spoken at home, it will compare Danvers to others, native and foreign born. So this is just a great way to find all types of data. I am going to, because someone asked, and I just want to pop down to the employment and see if I have a quick link. I would say to the person looking for the work from home or the commuting information, feel free to reach out to me, and I can help you pull that up. Let's see. This is travel time to work, walked, worked from home. There it is. Okay. So 17.5% of the people in Danvers work from home. And it's on this table. There's a table. So there's a quick link to the table. I'm just going to click on the table. I know we have just a couple minutes left, but here is the table. So that was a fast way to pull up the information. Worked from home, 17%. Your margin of error is plus or minus 3.5%. So it gives you an idea. It shows you the males versus the females that work from home and the margin of error. So there is that. I can tell you there's another table as well that gives you the number, not just the percent. So if you were looking for a raw number. But that is the profiles for your community. So that's something that everyone can go back now and just go to data.census.gov, go back into that box, type in your town or your city, and see what you get. So that is pretty much it. And we're like 1 minute. If anyone has any other questions, again, I have a QR code here. You can take this. It will give you put my information right in your phone if you want it. And you can reach out to me, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions. And I will say an hour isn't a lot of time to give you the background and just kind of a census 101. But we will be doing in April, right, Al? I think it's April. I don't know what the date is. Al would know the date. We're
Yes,
doing
I
a deep
actually put the
dive.
link to register in the chat, but the date for, whoops, that is data on a deadline. The date for the deeper dive is Tuesday, April 15th. and there is still some room on that. But as some of the people know, if I'm able to accommodate people off of the wait list, I will I will shoot out an email to those registered on the wait list with the link if we have enough room in our Zoom license to be able to bring some more people on. So don't get discouraged if you don't get the wait list. I also send the recordings to the people who are waitlisted as well. And this session and the deeper dive sessions will also be offered again this summer. So we have the deeper dive in April. In May, it is the Tuesday before the MLA conference, which is, oops, I'm all the way up into September here. There it is, Tuesday, May 13th. And that is the data on a deadline. So sort of the quick and dirty introduction to census data. And so June and July will be rerunning Data 101 and a deeper dive. So, and there are a couple of questions in the chat, Nicole. I don't know if that's something that you are able to answer now. If you want them to contact you directly, when I send out the recording and your presentation, I can also send out that email of yours.
Yeah, I'm looking. I mean, I know people are hopping off. It's 3:01. I do see the one somebody was interested in language spoken at home. We certainly have that. I can get that back to 2010 in data.census.gov. So they said they were having a hard time finding it for or actually later than 2015. So yeah, definitely I would say anyone that has a question, reach out to me via email, call me, and I will answer any of your questions here that we didn't get to.
All right. Fantastic. Thank you all so much for coming. I will stop the recording now and